Hello, Andrew. Thank you for being here.
Hi Jasper, good to see you again.
So, could you just introduce yourself and add some color on your career?
Hi Jasper, Andrew Chubb. I'm the CEO of Awalé Resources and have been involved with Awalé since its inception back in 2017 and became the CEO of the company about in May of last year. And I've got for me career wise, got a protracted history in both the junior and mining sector and consulting sector, as well as working for some majors as well along the line. But now been focused in West Africa for about the last 10 years and really quite excited to be leading Awali through some significant change and to what's really exciting about the next or the future, the next steps for the company are even more exciting.
I guess, how would you say that Awalé Resources stands out from other junior exploration companies?
I see us as I guess a de-risked explorer now, which puts us ahead of the curve of a lot of other exploration plays. So we've got four significant discoveries. One of them is Charger, which is in the last 12 months has delivered three of the highest grade intercepts in West Africa, and we have the highest grade intercept, actually Africa, not just West Africa. And the other thing is the other discovery, BBM, I view it like bread and butter. So it's pretty exciting as well, and BBM will just continue to grow. And so I view us, as a little bit ahead of the curve in that we're de-risked. We also have a strong supporter in Newmont, who is spending money on two of our permits. And now we're just embarking on, the greater portion, which is really exciting for us too. I guess we've been restricted to a box of 400 square kilometers, and we made significant discoveries inside that box. And that box restriction was purely through permit granting, and now we're getting permits granted, and we're really starting to move on the regional scale. And when you're on big systems like this, you're not restricted to a 400-kilometer box. So it's pretty exciting to start to move out into the blue sky, which we have.
I agree on that. So that's also why, yeah, that's what we are. Why we are invested. So then, Newmont, how much did you get in budget extension? I mean, the budget was originally 3 million US, right? And how much
It
did you
was
get
three
in
and a half.
extension?
We had
Oh, three and a half.
3.5
Sorry,
million.
three
Yeah,
point
and
five.
and it's been extended to 4. So we've we're just going to use that for drilling basically, and we've sort of, initially we were looking at doing quite a lot of air core drilling this quarter. We're not going to do that. We're going to do more diamond drilling and more actually start up some RC drilling toward the end of the year. So I guess the number of meters have gone down within that budget, but the quality meters have gone up because we're drilling more diamond and air core. So it's we've started drilling at BBM. Charger will come next, and the RC drilling will start up on what we're calling the BBM satellite targets, which are a long strike from the BBM discovery, and that's within the joint venture. And we've also going to start work in the new year on the 100% Awali properties as well. So that's some drilling there as well. So that's quite cool.
How many meter diamond? How many meter RC preliminary?
Okay, so we've got 4,000 meters of diamond planned up, and we're in the process of planning at least 5,000 meters of RC. I think that RC budget, some of it will fall into our 2025 budget because we won't start that until the end of the year. But in effect, we just won't stop drilling on the joint venture really throughout the drill season, which is between now and July, August. There may be a few small breaths where we catch up and plan up ongoing phases, but we expect to just really be having a very strong drill half in the first half of 2025.
How many rigs will you use? Diamond rigs and also RC rigs?
At the moment, we're drilling 2,000 meters a month with one diamond rig, which we're comfortable with. We have a second diamond rig on site, and if we think it's necessary, we can get that moving. And then RC again, it's campaign, so we'll plan up a program of a minimum of 5,000 meters, and that's roughly 4 to 6 weeks of RC drilling, and get that on site toward the end of this year.
Let's speak first about diamond drilling and how are you planning on allocating that?
At the moment, we've got 3,000 meters planned, and this always changes as we drill, right? So, if we start to see more interesting things, we sort of adjust the program. So at the moment, we've got 3,000 meters of diamond, which is already started at BBM, and then we've got then we'll move on to charger, which will be roughly at this stage we've got 1,000 in the budget for charger, to follow up on the new mineralization model that we talked about in a news release in the webinar I did a couple of weeks ago. That's where the diamond's allocated at this stage.
Okay, that's good to know. And the RC will, as far as at least preliminary, just be on BBM. So on the extensions.
The extension or satellite targets, and then we'll, as I mentioned, we'll also spend some Awalé money on the new Fremen target that we have, but we want to do the IP. So we're getting ourselves ready to do some IP on those targets and also on the Fremen target. So, but we've got some interesting detailed geochemistry now on the extension targets from BBM, and so we'll be putting out a new news release just to keep everyone informed on that geochem as well in the next few weeks. But yeah, so it's they're all three of those are exciting targets. But I think from an Awalé perspective, we're probably most excited about our own first 100% drill program.
So then, why did you elect not to drill Lando in this sort of 2024's campaign, although it spills into 2025?
I guess there is motivation to expand the size of BBM. So we defined that 600 meter core, and so there's motivation to make it bigger. And then look, there's motivation from a Newmont perspective as well, because they need to deliver a minimum 2 million ounce. That doesn't have to be from one target, but as part of the joint venture, that is one of the conditions. So, there is motivation to see what sort of size BBM can be, and then charger, like I just mentioned, it's delivered 3 of the highest grade intercepts in Africa in the last 12 months, and so to be able to add that sort of high grade into the picture is a very strong motivation.
BBM. So you released 2 holes, 97, 98. These were the deep holes and the final holes that we were waiting for from actually this year. So could you summarize, what did you hit and what did you learn from these holes in particular?
Look, we saw, exactly what we wanted to see in the drill core, which is exactly the same system open at depth. And that was one of the most important things to us was drilling a couple of deeper holes and showing that the system was open at depth. The hole number 98, we're getting quite deep. We're sort of 400 meters, below surface, and that is, very deep. So, you want to be thinking about what your grade is down there as well. And within that reported interval, we did get the 12 meters at 3.9 gold equivalent. So, that's nice to see those grades with depth, because you can, it still means there's still a picture to go underground, potentially with those grades. So that was encouraging for us as well. But the key thing is you want to drill some deeper holes early in the program, just to make sure you've got in your back pocket that you are open at depth, like that just to show that the system is robust and still there. And absolutely, that mineralized system is robust and still there. We see the same strong alteration and mineralization at depth. So that is open, and then the current drilling is really more focused on building those, I guess, horizontal panels outwards, so expanding the size along strike. And then there are some holes which are, we've always said that we've got high confidence in how robust BBM is, and those deep holes are part of that. But we're also sort of doing some infill kind of pierce points in that core 600-meter zone, just to give us that last sort of 10% of confidence in the robustness of the system as well. So that's sort of where we're headed with BBM right now.
Yeah, one main shear that's and you have one core sort of defined 600-meter strike zone. Does that consist of multiple sort of panels, or is it sort of one large panel?
Oh, that 600-meter zone is
piercing?
just one large panel, and so when we're moving along strike with this current program, I guess it's more like brownfields exploration, pushing towards the northwest and the southeast. So I've always said we've always said that plunge is there towards the northwest. So the holes to the northwest continue to test that plunge and try and make it bigger. And then in the webinars and things that I've done, I've always talked about other plunging chutes, or maybe things extend out of depth. So that's what we're doing towards the southeast. And the whole idea is just trying to expand that 600-meter panel continuously as we move along strike. So that's where that's the primary goal of the BBM drill program.
How thick on average is this panel through?
It would be true width 30 to 40 meters, depending on where you are within the panel. It's quite good, and there is a little bit of footwall mineralization as well. And we've sort of looked at folding, and the recent release we sort of started showing that we're seeing some folding within the shear, and so potentially that helps thicken out the mineralization as well, where we're getting that folding within the shear.
Let's talk about the fold model, where you have hinges or the fold model which controls higher grade mineralization. Can you talk about that? How do you identify folding? What is folding, and how can you use that to more effectively target higher grade mineralization?
Yeah, so I guess the folding is different at BBM and Charger, and it's all about timing. So the biggest thing about the folding at BBM is thickening and getting more mineralization, whereas Charger, it's a thickening thing as well, but it seems to control the high grade mineralization. So there's a stronger high grade control at Charger. How do you recognize it? Is careful observation in the drill core. A good structural geologist or a decent geologist can, it depends on scale. So sometimes you can actually see small scale folds, which you can actually see within your sort of 5 centimeter piece of drill core. So you can actually see the folds. And then, quite often, depending on the type of folding, then you can actually expand that to bigger, stepping up in scales, up to hundreds of meters, even kilometers. And then broadly over the length of a drill hole, you might see, so you get, a form or an orientation in the core that you can see, and you can pick up the same orientation throughout the core. And then you might actually start to see subtle changes in the angles of that foliation in the core, and that might actually be, it may tell you that it's folding or it may not, and you just need to keep collecting all those data points. We plot them in stereo nets and things, which help us understand what these things look like. I don't want to get into too much detail, but basically there are features within the core that you can pick out and then start to make inferences, and then you keep collecting points and actually, plotting that physical data, and then you can start to see folding. One of the key things at Charger was we had 2 holes that we thought would hit mineralization that missed. And this is where it's important that sometimes you drill holes that are not mineralized, because you need to know what things look like within the mineralized system and outside it. And once you and so I mean, every shareholder would love us to drill a perfect hole every time we drill a hole, and believe me, we don't like drilling too many dry holes, but they also give you a lot of help. And those 2 holes gave us a lot of help for understanding what the mineralization actually might look like at Charger. So it's just being a good, being a quality geologist, making those careful observations when you're doing your logging, and making sure that you're plotting your stereo nets and looking at things on all scales. Don't get lost in the trees. Look at the forest as well.
Is it just sedimentary rocks, or that's folded?
No, any rocks can be folded. So, I mean, we think Charger's folded, and it's an intrusive.
As you go deeper, is the mineralogy changing in any ways? Is the copper grade getting higher, or could you talk about that?
No, it's consistent. It's pretty consistent. So it is zoned. So what we're seeing is a zonation at the moment. What we're seeing is it seems to be a little bit higher grade copper towards the northwest. But in the deeper drill holes, the ratios are roughly the same as what they actually are in the rest of the holes that are in the core 600 meters. Funnily enough, one of the stronger correlations with the better grade gold at the moment, we haven't drilled many holes, so you're continually building data. So, we've drilled 28 holes, I think it is, at BBM now, and 60, about 7,000 meters. So we really haven't done that much drilling. There's a very strong correlation between the higher grade moly and the higher grade gold in the system.
I mean, you will infill drill the 600 meter core sort of strike length that we have. What drill spacing will you have on that infill drilling?
They'll be roughly, it's like we're just testing the continuity, but it'll be roughly 100 meter pierce points.
How many meters are you allocated into that infill part of the program?
Maybe 1,500 or 2,000, 1,500, I think, something like that. Yeah. We should be asking Andrew Smith that question, because that fine detail I can't remember.
I mean, he's not too far away from you, so
yeah, that's all right. That fine. It's roughly 1,500, I'd say, on those sort of 100 meters.
So you're not really going that deep, not as these holes, the 2 97 and 98.
No, it's so I think we've proven the system at depth. Now the mineralization is from surface, so it's more about how much you can fit in the top 300 meters. I think is or thereabouts is something that we're looking at now, and then move back into.
So that the other 1,000 to 1,500 meters that go into extending BBM, in what direction are you trying to extend it?
Oh, on both sides. So you've got the core panel, and we're stepping out southeast and northwest.
You've had a few holes there. Is there anything that tells you that the mineralization wouldn't be as strong as in the core 600 meters?
Look, they're shallow. They are slightly shallower holes out there, and so they're mineralized. So we still see the same alteration system and mineralization. Sometimes a little bit thinner, like the widths of mineralization are a bit thinner. But so we've always thought that there might be more mineralization deeper. And we got some small indicators, particularly to the southeast. So some of the step outs to the southeast had better, some nice gold values in there over shorter intervals as well. So, like I said, toward the northwest, the copper, the gold equivalent values, are still quite good, but the ratios of copper gold in those tend to be a little bit better or higher towards copper. And so, but we've always thought we might be just drilling over the top of a plunge there. So you're getting copper on the periphery, and then there might be more gold a little bit deeper down. So that's where we're looking towards the.
Interesting. Okay, where do you have your rig right now? Turning
BBM.
Where at BBM?
It's starting to move down towards the southeast.
Excellent. So it's actually starting with the extension.
No, it actually started in the core stuff. And then it's been moving towards the southeast. But we've probably been drilling for about 10 days or something.
And if you talk about the regional drilling, because you have 8 kilometers of a soil anomaly at BBM, or I mean Termitaria anomaly, really.
Yeah, soil and Termitaria. It's both. I mean, the Termitaria, it's where those guys decide to dig. It's not on a perfect grid. So we fill the gaps with soils, and we the geochemistry is slightly different from the two because they're different. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But we do both. But so that 8 kilometer grid or that 8 kilometer zone, we've got two targets within there that are a little bit more standout. So they've got higher grade core.
And these are outside of the 1300 BBMs of discovery trend.
So they're along that 8 kilometers of strike, and so we've done a lot more sampling. So the detail of the geochemistry that we've got is quite good. I think we're down to sort of at least 200 by 50 and even 100 by 50 in some zones. So the detail that we've got is quite good, and so that's why we'll be putting together a news release on that, because we think it's pretty interesting. But we're calling those targets Bobber and Fett, and they're
like Boba Fett?
They're looking interesting.
Bobber and Fett, like Boba Fett?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, nice. I like the name. Yeah.
So, they're interesting targets, and so we're looking forward to getting the IP done over them and sort of tightening up our drill targeting and get in there with the RC rig.
What's the timeline on IP?
We're just figuring out when we can get started. There's quite a few perennial crops which are really a food source for the local villagers. So we don't like being disrespectful, I guess, of those sorts of things, and we would like to see them harvest their crops before we go in there. So we're just figuring out or mapping exactly where those crops are, and if we can get started like this week on areas, and then move into the other areas after they get cropping, we will. But we'll anyway, so it's just around the corner.
We'll start with RC. What would you like to see in your RC for them to switch up to diamond?
Well, I guess. Well, the interesting thing is, so there's less outcrop at Bobber and Fett. The interesting thing is at Fremen, when Andrew and I were walking around there, and I recorded that webinar about termites, was that in the float on the ground, the rock float on the ground, we picked up BBM hanging wall rocks. So exactly the same as the granodiorite that you drill through as you go towards hitting the mineralization. So, at Fremen, definitely think that that's what we're expecting to see in the RC, is that we start drilling in the hanging wall granodiorite. We start seeing it getting more strongly foliated, and then we start seeing the same alteration that we see at BBM, and with 3 to 5% sulfide, hopefully. And on the mag, the targets at one of the particular targets looks extremely similar to BBM, so we would expect to see the same thing. The target that's further north is not quite exactly the same, but maybe the IP will sort of give us a bit more help. But there's not a lot of outcrop on those, so we'll see. But the key thing is to see alteration. You want to see alteration in those.
Can you see alteration in RC as you don't get the core?
You get chips that are sort of up to 2 centimeters in size. And so you don't get the actual structure. You can't pick it out, but you can see the alteration, and you can see how how strong the strain is. So BBM is all about strain and how highly strained it is, and so and you can see that, how much the rocks are being stretched as you get closer to the mineralized zone. So they're the thing. You can still see those things in reverse circulation, and you can't really, you don't get that much information in air core, so that's why we think the RC will be better for that too. But yeah, so you're looking for that strain intensity and alteration.
So let's talk about Cienso, the Cienso permit. Why did you rename it from Turaka?
Well, Turaco was the company we sort of did an option agreement with to get the permit. And so now that we're really working on it, we'll give the permit a life and call the whole permit Cienso.
And then you have Fremen, the target.
And then now we've sort of, we really like that target, so we thought we should give that actual target a life. So now we've got the Fremen target within the Cienso permit.
By the way, are there any royalties on the Cienso ground?
Yeah, Resolute actually has a small royalty. I think 1 or 1.425%, something like that.
So Cienso permit, you have identified sort of 3.5 kilometers of anomalous gold values on sort of on trend. It's particularly on trend with BBM, but then it deviates to the south. Could you just add some color to
we think it's still the same structure, and that's what makes us sort of excited. So that green line that's on the figure that we published, we see that is the same, like exact same structure as BBM. And the fact that it does take a turn to the south makes it particularly interesting because, there is a subtle turn in the structure of BBM, and those sort of changes in strike along these structures are really important for mineralization. So that's what makes is another one of the parts that makes us excited about Fremen as a target.
And you used termite mounts, or you took samples from termite mounts. Could you explain why Termitaria samples are much more accurate than regular soil samples? And did you take regular soil samples as well?
Yes, we did take both where we could. So the termites see through cover. So sometimes in the soils you have transported something that isn't actually in situ or directly derived from the rocks below. And so they may either like mask the response from what's below, or you may even get a response that's actually transported from somebody somewhere else, which is even worse because you've got a false response. Whereas the termites, these little guys, they burrow down quite deep, sort of 40, 50 meters in some cases, and they're bringing up sample into those mounds above surface that is actually directly related to the bedrock underneath. So it's an in situ sample, and so you tend to get a higher order response, or the tenor tends to be higher, and that it's from somewhere quite close, within a sort of 50 to 100 meter radius of that termite mount. So they are very good from that perspective to chase and have an indication of mineralization that is actually in situ.
You mentioned that you had the anomalous copper values, but you never showcased any copper values in your news release. Could you?
No, that's right.
Copper values did you have in Termitaria?
The copper values were in the core still, quite high, over 100 ppm, I think. But in all, it probably wasn't. It's not as high as BBM, the copper values. But for us, it was more about the gold and seeing exactly the same gold anomaly that we saw that we've seen at BBM. The anomaly is a little bit broken up, and that is because of that transported cover that I was talking about. So particularly in the zones, there are some sort of drainage pattern or creeks or stream, or if you want, ephemeral stream where when it rains, the ground's moving, and termites don't like building their nest there because they'll get washed away every wet season. And two, you also create the transported soil problem that I was talking about. So because we can see the structure keeps going in the regional magnetics, we feel that if we could have taken geochemistry that was continuous through those zones, then they would still all connect up.
So what spacing did you have in your Termitaria sampling?
I think the Termitarian soils got down to 200 by 50 in that zone.
I mean, you showcased gold anomalies above 37 ppb. But if we look at above 100 ppb, how does it look then? How large is sort of the footprint?
Yeah, so it tightens up. Again, it's sort of broken up, but it's still there. But it gets broken up because of that thing. So that bigger anomaly to the southern bigger anomaly that you can see in the picture, it's when you walk the ground, it's like a low mound. So it's slightly higher topography in a way, and so there's nice continuous termitaria to sample, as well as where there's no termitaria, the outcrops are getting, the bedrock is getting kind of closer to surface in a place like that. So the soils are quite effective too. So so it's a really nice coherent anomaly, and that's got beautiful plus 100 ppb part or core to there. And then in the other smaller ones, there is plus 100 ppb samples as well. So where the anomaly is good. And again, we got that 1.3 gram termitaria, which is quite nice, and which is exactly the same as what we got at BBM when we drilled the first 4 holes.
So after you're done with the IP at BBM, you will go take the same IP crew and do it or IP contractor and do it at Fremen.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you see in your IP that to not
So
drill it,
the
drill test it
orientation,
directly?
so before wet season kicked in, we did some orientation at BBM, and that orientation IP really delineated that hanging wall footwall contact of the mineralization at BBM quite sharply. So when you combine that with the geochemistry, because we do quite detailed lithogeochemistry, which is looking at different parts of the multi-element results. When you marry those together, we can pick out that contact within, well, I think on a meter scale, we're probably within, 10 or 20 meters, maybe even 5 meters in some cases. So that really helps us plan our drilling and make sure that we're hitting that target with as little drilling as possible, which is the high cost.
So you will start with RC. When will you RC it? Is that after you're done at BBM or?
Look, again, I think it just comes down to the logistics. It'll all end up being part of the same program. So logistically, with talking to our villages and the crops and all that sort of stuff, that'll just determine where the RC rig goes. The idea is that we'll have a truck mounted RC rig, so it can move quite freely between the different targets. But we should drill it in January. January, early February at the absolute latest.
How much do you expect the initial RC program to cost?
70, let's say $70, $60 or $70 a meter, all in cost. And we'll drill. I don't know. We haven't planned the program yet. So if it's 2,000 meters or 1,500 meters, at that kind of price.
Okay, so it's really just a few hundred. I mean, it's probably less than $200,000.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. And yeah, I guess I don't think we have anything left on. We just have to wait for the IP really before we talk more about
Yeah,
Fremen.
it's just that last little bit of detail that we want before we go and start drilling those new targets. So, and look, you mentioned Lando and other targets. They will come into play. They should come into play.
So then, Charger, we'll already talk about the fold model with the intrusion associated mineralization. But yeah, let's summarize. Just you hit the 14.7 grams per ton of gold over 59 meters from 96 meters downhole. Yeah, within that you had sort of a little bit above 20 grams per ton over 21 meters. So yeah, that's a fantastic result. That's your second best result at Charger. Then you had 3 other holes released. Could you just summarize the results, what you learned, and what you learned from them?
Well, I guess look, was it so 102 was another nice hole as well, which drilled from the from the northeast through that pretty much perpendicular to that northeast trend, and we got quite broad mineralization in that hole with a shorter interval at good grade. I think it was 8 meters at 13 or something. I'd have to go back and check. But and then so that was great. And then particularly, so 99 and 101 we're testing for deeper, what was going on deeper. And so 101, I think it is 101, sort of missed the mark a little bit, but 99 intercepted breccia from 330 to 430 meters below surface. The grades were not that high, but they were there. And again, it's the same sort of thing as 98. All at BBM. All we're looking for is to see if we've got the right rocks and the right alteration and the right things going on at depth. And we certainly do. And so now we've got another sort of point on that breccia zone, which is significantly deeper than any of the other points that we have. So that all comes into play when we're planning up the next program. And we think that finding, as I said, finding the hinges is the important thing, because that's where we have broader mineralization and sort of a higher grade.
So how do you identify fold hinges? I mean, you showcased them in your webinar. You showcased also a few potential hinges that you haven't drill tested.
Yeah. So I guess it comes down to, again, what I was saying. So those structural measurements and plotting them on a thing we call the stereo net. And when you plot these structural measurements on a stereo net, you can start to see trends. And so we can see, I guess, axial planes that are flat as well. And so that's from the particular measurements. And then just from the drill core directly, in the hinge zones, we do have, we think, we're seeing some sort of order, or we think we can see small scale folds within those hinges now. But there is a tendency to be a little bit more disarray in those hinge zones. And then when we come out and look at the clasts in the interpreted limbs, we see a lot more alignment of those clasts and the alteration and things like that. So that's where it appears to be coming out and being sort of flatter. And then when you're in the hinge, you have multiple small scale folds, and so the clasts are in a little bit more disarray in those hinge zones. And
So you
it's
got more
only something
matrix in the hinge zone.
Yeah, look, yes, possibly there is more matrix in there as well, but the clasts are not always aligned, so they're more rotated and moved around it, and that could be a factor of the folding, because you get multiple small scale folds in that thicker, more attenuated section of the hinge. So I mean, I don't want to go too deeply in it, but the volume has got, when you start folding things, the volume has got to go somewhere. So you can't take the volume of rock away. So when you bend it around, it's got to go somewhere. And when you bend things that tightly, it tends to wind up in the hinge. So things like that have got to go somewhere. So that's why the hinges fatten, if you like, or get bigger.
Could you talk about the geometry of Charger based on what you know now, especially that sort of more core 200-meter, very high grade zone or strike?
What do we know now? So look, I think we know that we're getting a corridor where we're finding the breccia, and we're just starting to realise that some of the intercepts that we've had, we're potentially drilling through limbs, and so the intervals are slightly shorter, and they might be still quite high grade, but you don't get the gram meters because they're shorter. We still get 50 to 100 gram meter hits in those zones as well. But we think we may have an orientation on what that folding is, and so we'll plan drilling that tests that. And so we've done so John in particular has done a sequential section analysis and made predictions on where he thinks the hinge might be moving between sections, and the fact that there might be other hinges within that corridor, depending on where we may have drilled through limbs. So the next drill program will be testing some of those ideas. And so it's like I said in the webinar, if we can, build even short strike lengths on each of those hinges, then the charge is not about volume for amount of gold. It's really about grade and putting those high grades together, over 50, 100 meters, and maybe multiple zones of that, or then you build ounces quickly rather than rather than volume. Sorry, it's not about the volume. It's about chasing those hinges and the grade.
What thickness do you think that corridor has, through thickness?
Yeah, so look, the drill holes that we drill, like, so that particular hinge interpretation, so it's roughly 50 meters by 30, 40, by between 30 and 40 meters. So that's why I talked about a tube with a 50-meter diameter as kind of an influence on that. So you end up with this tube shape or cigar shape that's 40, 50 meters in diameter, that at 15 grams per ton will give you a couple of 100,000 ounces every 100 meters or so.
I think it's good that you're answering, that you're bringing up the ounces, because that has probably been the biggest skepticism towards Charger, that sure, very high grade, 10 grams per ton plus, but if it's sub-million ounce deposit, it isn't very material, especially not in Newmont. So
well, it is though. So the thing is that it is, because it's very high grade.
Yeah, but it probably has to be
if you put 500,000 ounces in the mix with 1.5 million ounces of 2 grams, all of a sudden you've got 2 million ounces at much higher grade, and that's way more attractive than 2 million ounces at 2 grams. It's 2 million ounces at, well, you can do you do a grade weighted average calculation, right? So I don't want to get too much into forward-looking statements, but it does make a huge difference to economics.
I'm just saying, if you're seeing any constraints in any direction for actually growing the deposit.
Right. Well, at the moment we don't see any constraints, so that's fine. It's but yeah, so it absolutely warrants more drilling, and we will be doing.
Andrew, you're the CEO of Junior Mining Company. You shouldn't oppose that it can't be bigger than 1 million ounces.
Oh, I'm not opposing that at all. I'm just yeah. Okay, so there's a misunderstanding. So look, if there is always, particularly if there are multiple fold hinges, like then all of a sudden Charger can become world class. I think you know me well enough to that I probably do err on the side of caution a little bit, and make sure that people don't get crazy ideas that with one more drilling program, one of the things that we're drilling is going to be some behemoth Newmont scale thing.
No, I agree with you.
And
You're honest.
yeah, look at like Charger for sure. If we can put that hinge model together and there are multiple hinges, then you actually don't need that much volume to have a million ounces. It's quite significant.
So 1,000 meters planned. What questions will you be trying to answer on sort of really what are you targeting with these
Well,
kilometers?
I guess we're targeting the fold hinge model, and look, I haven't actually seen a plan for that yet. So these things take time, right? When you particularly when you're in something that's a little bit more structurally complex. So, but we will, before the end of this month or in the next week or so, have a full. John and Andrew will have a full plan together for Charger, which we'll have a look at because I'm going to be on site again in early December. So I'm going to the Mines and Money conference shortly, and then I'm going straight from there to site. So we'll have a lot of those things on the table by then, as well as a bit of an idea of starting to have an idea of where we're going to be in the first 6 months of next year with deployment of dollars on both the joint venture and 100% Awalé.
But generally, these meters will sort of be very close, small step outs, or even infill sort of.
Oh, look, initially baby steps, and then if we build some confidence, we would step out further.
You have quite long assay turnaround times. Why is that? And could you improve that or reduce these times?
Yeah, so it's something that we're definitely looking at. I mean, it's frustrating. It's as frustrating for us as it is for anyone who's watching Awalé. So we are definitely looking at that, and we hope there'll be some changes in the from this drill program. With getting that turnaround time improved on the multi-element analysis. Yeah. And on the other hand, for the 100%, well, not just for the 100% Awalé, but with the percussion drilling and particularly the geochemistry. I mean, I have told people in the past, like, at some stage where people have probably forgotten that we are purchasing a portable PBB system, which will, in a nutshell, it's not a lab accredited analysis, but it'll give us an idea of what the grades are within 48 hours. And that's particularly exciting for us on the 100% because we can come in and infill targets quite quickly to being towards, drill ready in a very short period of time.
And so after you have spent the $4 million for this year and we'll go spilling into next year, how much of the 15 million will be spent, remains to be spent?
Well, the actual spend at the end of this year will be roughly $8 million. So that leaves roughly seven towards the final 15.
When will you know the budget for next year?
December sometime. Yeah, for sure. Look, we're expecting a budget increase on the from this year, like more. We have each year we've received more since we started the JV. So we've had 3 budgets now. So it's been and so it's look, I think I think both sides, both Awalé and Newmont, we just want to push towards milestones in 2025, which means a significant amount of drilling, and there should be a budget that's commensurate with that.
Do you think Newmont will just go, and I mean, if they have 7 million left to spend, do you just think they will take it all out next year, or?
I think they'll try and push as close as they can.
That's good. So how many meters? I mean, say that you get 6 million then for simplicity, not get it all. How many meters do you think that will of diamond? Do you think that will translate into?
Look, we would end up doing diamond RC, so be looking at 20, at least 25,000 meters, I suppose.
What is Newmont pushing for in terms of targeting? Seems like they're definitely pushing for BBM. What else do you think they will push for to drill next year?
Look, they're the same as us. I mean, we've all wanted to do more work at Lando, and we want to bring Empire back into play. I think we've learned a lot about the structural geology in the last 12 months, and so that really does bring Empire back into play, and again Sceptre as well. We've got, there is a, with the bigger budget, you can start bringing other things back into play that have been sort of um, either put aside for a reason, like Empire, or targets that have been lower ranked because they're less advanced, and so those things just all come back into play. It's like we never throw a target away is one thing that we never do, because as you learn more about a project, other targets you have new ideas for. And things that are lower ranked will always, when you've got to work to a budget, they do tend to get pushed to one side. But with the bigger budget, they'll come back into play.
Sceptre East, is that drill ready?
Yeah, that is. Yeah, we can drill some well
Do you
targeted
think? Are you
holes.
confident that you will drill test it, like drill 2 holes into the guts?
Yeah, look, it's been discussed, and I know that it will be within that framework that I just said that I'd love to talk to you about in January 2025. So, it will be in there. Yeah.
And Lando?
Yeah, and Lando is for sure. Lando. It's still, we love Lando. We all do. We all think it's a great target, right? Within the joint venture. And so it will get drilled, but like I said, it's still really a large geochem target, and it just its ranking was not as high against for this year against BBM and Charger, because of what they were delivering and will continue to deliver, I think. But with a bigger budget, the other ones can come into play as well.
Okay, good, because I think that's very important that you do test Sceptre East, Lando, maybe even test Wakaba or any of your other sort of targets that are less often discussed, because I think that has been some concern for some shareholders, that there's too much focus on sort of infill drilling BBM, and also
well, we've never infill drilled BBM, really.
Okay, not infill drilling, but that was maybe a wrong way to say it of mine, but too much focus on 2 targets, maybe 3 targets with Empire, and not sort of the more regional, blue sky discovery.
I don't necessarily. That's a much broader conversation, which what you're saying certainly has merit but everything is budget dependent, and you also there are many other I guess milestones that need to be met, both within the joint venture, within our relationship with the government, within there are many. It's not just there are many other sort of parts that fit into that framework of driving the project forward and making sure that everything's okay on all fronts. So these we don't discount those targets. Mate, rest assured, we'd love these targets, but it's you've still got to fit them in to the framework, and they'll come into play in the drill season, in that the drill season that goes through to sort of July, August.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, as long as what you drill has the potential for sort of reaching Newmont's bar, for it to be material to them, which probably is around, at least have a line of sight for 5 million ounces, good ounces. Yeah, what happens once Newmont say that they complete the earn agreement by end of next year and has 75% of the project then?
That is a question that I actually can't answer today. I really can't answer that today. So it's a decision, like there's a decision milestone for them, and what they decide to do at that juncture. I mean, I don't have an answer for that today. I think everyone knows we've got line of sight on a mid-tier project, and they need to decide if there's line of sight on a tier 1 project, and then so where everything goes when we start to hit those decision milestones will be I'm sure discussed between us throughout the year, but it's not something that I have an answer to today.
Where do you envision Awalé at the end of next year?
Where I would love to see Awalé with at least 1 and maybe 2 discoveries on the 100% ground. We're really excited to get stuck into that, and then And from a, I guess from a market cap perspective, it'd be great to see us, in the sort of 100 million kind of market cap range or more would be, excellent for us as well. And yeah, so they're two key goals for us is to get the market cap into that range through success at the drill bit. So I think those two things run hand in hand, and maybe to be able to announce another discovery as well on the JV, either at Lando or something like that, to be able to call it a true discovery, not just a big geochem footprint.